I am Professor Hans Rosling. This month, April 2015, more people than ever are drowning when traveling to Europe across the Mediterranean Sea. Some come to look for a job, but many are refugees from war and oppression. But why do they travel overland to Libya to get onto these dangerous boats? Is it because they can't afford to fly with an airplane? Let's look at the numbers. A single ticket from Ethiopia all the way directly to Stockholm costs 400 euro. To fly from Lebanon to London is 400 euro. And you can buy a ticket to fly from Egypt to Rome in Italy for 320 euro. And the price to get onto these boats is consistently by media reported to be 1,000 euro or more. So to get on these crowded boats costs 2 to 3 times as much as to fly in a convenient airplane. So what exactly is it that stops the refugees from flying to Europe to apply for asylum? They can reach the airports, they can afford to buy a ticket, but at the check-in counter they are stopped by the airlines from getting onto the airplane. And this is due to this European Union directive from 2001 that tells member countries how to combat illegal immigration. What this directive says is that every airline and boat lines that bring a person without the proper documents for entry have to pay all the costs for returning that person back to their country of origin. And this is what makes commercial airlines not to allow people to board if they don't have all documents. But of course, this directive also says that it doesn't apply for refugees that want to come based on the Geneva Convention. The European government has escaped responsibility when they have transferred the task to decide who is a refugee and who is not a refugee to the staff at the check-in counter. So in practice, what is happening is that no one can board without a visa. So it is this directive that is the reason for so many refugees drowning in the Mediterranean Sea. I am Professor Hans Rosling. Let me show you where the Syrian refugees are today. Before this very tragic conflict started, there were around 20 million people living in Syria. Each block here represents 1 million people. Today, more than half of that population, 12 million, have left their homes. 8 million have fled to other parts of Syria. They are often referred to as internally displaced people. 4 million live as refugees in the neighboring countries. It's mainly Turkey, Lebanon, and Jordan. Now, how many has made it to the European Union? It's only 250,000. 250,000 Syrian refugees that have applied for asylum in the European Union. This is less than 2% of the total number of internal and external refugees from Syria. In Syria, the tragic conflict is intensifying. Daesh, the so-called Islamic State, recently took control of one more city, so the number of refugees will increase. The Syrian refugees are not allowed to apply for asylum in the embassies of the EU countries in this region. But if they find a way to travel to an EU country, then inside the country they are allowed to apply, and they will also be granted asylum today because the situation is so terrible in Syria. But in order to exercise that right, they have to enter the EU illegally through costly and dangerous journeys. But presently the European Union is discussing a quota plan that will enable refugees of different origin that live outside Europe to apply for asylum before coming, and that will secure safe travels. But the plan only includes 20,000 refugees. So even if applied only to the Syrian refugees, it will just cover 0.2%, that is 1 in 500. So today, the European Union does everything it can to stop more than 99% of the Syrian refugees to apply for the asylum that they are legally entitled to in EU countries.